Hi everyone! Our itinerary is focused on grotesque art, an often overlooked art style and theme within Italy's history. What is grotesque art? The word grotesque comes from the Italian word grotesco, which means of the grotto. Grotesque art was first rediscovered all over the walls of Emperor Nero's Domus Aurea, the Golden House in Rome, dating back to the 1st century AD. The story goes that at the end of the 15th century, a young man fell into a hole and saw the painted grotto, the ruins of Domus Aurea. Afterwards, the site was visited by and inspired many artists, including Raphael and Michelangelo, who were lowered in by ropes to explore the captivating decoration. Grotesque art featuring decorative foliage, mythical creatures, and odd human forms soon became a trend that swept Europe. Our route, consisting of museums and park stops, takes us through Florence and continues north.
Our first stop is Piazza della Santissima Annunziata, where there is the Fontane dei Mostri Marini, or the Fountains of the Marine Monsters. They're bronze fountains made by Pietro Tacca. They were commissioned for the Tuscan city Livorno, but the people of Florence enjoyed the fountains so much that they ended up staying in the SS Annunziata Square. They earned the nickname Fontana de Caciocco, which is a type of fish soup popular in Livorno. The city of Livorno commissioned and financed their own copies to be made during the Second World War. They're described as bizarre monster figures, making them interesting, grotesque sculptures. The figure is of two sea monsters on a basin that's decorated with a variety of other sea creatures and marine life. They're widely loved and mentioned in language guidebooks, travel literature, and scholarly texts. Our next stop is the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore. On the side of the cathedral, there are 11 marble gargoyles and the 12th in the museum. There are a variety of different types of heads, all representing monsters and grotesque images. Some of these include caricatured heads, zoomorphic monsters, and animals. They have historical significance, being made to protect the building physically by collecting rainwater through their mouths and deflecting it from the building. They also protect it spiritually, as it is said they ward off bad spirits. For preservation, they no longer function as vents. Some heads have myths and legends surrounding them, specifically the bull's head. Some people claim it was put there as a tribute to the draft animals that aided in the construction of the building. There are other stories that claim it was put there as the result of an affair, being made as a passive-aggressive symbol.
Now we are at the Bargello Museum. There's not much information on this piece online, but I personally remember viewing it a few months ago at the museum and remembering it fit our grotesque art topic well. It is positioned higher above, making it harder to see its details in person. It has a theme of mythology and supporting grotesque figures to fill in the space. Specifically, this is a Roman mythological narrative depicting Jupiter, also known as Zeus, and his lovers. Observing the piece, we can see hybrid human and animal creatures, real animals like birds, horses, and camels, and floral details. Throughout our stories involving Zeus as an animal alongside women. This piece is by Alessandro Allori, a leading Mannerist painter who worked in Florence for the Medici family and other patrons. We will see his name again at the next stop. This stop is the Uffizi Gallery. The ceilings of the corridors of the Florentine Gallery are decorated in a grotesque fresco series that was commissioned by Grand Duke Francesco I de' Medici in the late 16th century. The eastern first corridor was initially frescoed between 1579 and 1581 by Antonio Tempesta, and then by Alessandro Allori and his workshop. During this time, the gallery did not exist and was actually the offices of the Florentine Guild. The eastern part acted like a passageway for the noble family. The decorations continue for 46 bays, and in each section there is a focal point in the center that sets the theme. The focal point could include allegorical and symbolic figures from myths with distinct characteristics. The remaining space is filled up with a range of mythical creatures like dragons, sphinxes, harpies, and chimeras, creating obscure scenes. Across the many bays, there are symbols of the Medici family, which are the lily, ball, crown, and scepter, as well as depictions of the cosmos, main stars, deities, and representations of love and marriage. There is no end of creativity and iconography throughout the cycle of frescoes.
Located on the top floor of the Uffizi Museum, the work Virgin and Child between St. Francis of Assisi and St. John the Evangelist, also known as Madonna of the Harpies, thanks to a misidentification. It brings forth the depiction of grotesque figures in this religious painting, created for the nuns of the Convent of St. Francis by Andrea del Sarto. It depicts St. John the Evangelist's apocalypse. Originally supposed to be Madonna and Child with two angels flanked by St. John the Evangelist and St. Bonaventure, Andrea del Sarto chose to go against that contract he made. Instead, he put harpies on the pedestal between the Virgin and Child. These monstrous beings with women heads and bellies representing breastplates are said to have emerged from the well of the abyss in a cloud of smoke, bringing torment to all human beings who not bear the tau, God's seal, on their foreheads. Monica Adultery, from the article Virgin and Child Between St. Francis of Assisi and St. John the Evangelist, published by the Uffizi Museum. These creatures, Greek mythological creatures, named harpies, are located on the bottom half of the work on the pedestal. Giorgio Vasari saw these pictures in 1550 and gave the name of Del Sorto's work as Madonna of the Harpies in his book Lives of the Artists. This misidentification by Vasari led most to believe that this was the name of the work rather than Del Tardo's signed title on the pedestal and dated back to 1517. The presence of these grotesque figures connect well with our topic. We see the rebirth of their usage in the Renaissance age, showcasing once more connection with the mythical past of ancient Rome they took inspiration from and the influence it holds on the artists of this time. These figures often serve as a representation for a message the artist was trying to communicate. The harpies here have also been believed to be either sphinx or locusts, all of which are monstrous figures that connect with destruction in the art world. Here, in the context of this painting, the theory is that harpies represent the original sin. Author Savannah Cohen makes the observation, stating that the style in which the harpies are painted can be connected to eroticism and defiance against female decorum standard, both an expression of their sinfulness. Barely clothed in open legs, these female hybrid figures on the pedestal are a direct opposition to the religious lifestyle rules, and thus it being present in the covenant of nuns serves as a reminder of the sins they are standing against.
Our next stop is at the Palazzo Vecchio. There are many grotesque frescoes on the ceiling and walls of the space. Cosimo de' Medici was an avid supporter and commissioner of the grotesque works. Giorgio Vasari had a leading role in the presence of these grotesques, along with Vasari's many apprentices. Francisco Salviati, Cristofano Giraldi, and Giovanni Stradano also worked heavily on these grotesque walls and ceilings. These images were inspired by Nero's Domus Aurea, or the Golden House, when these artifacts were rediscovered in the 15th century. Many of the subjects were also drawn from Roman myths and even ancient animals. Grotesque art at this time period was intertwined with natural and scientific elements.
Outside of Palazzo Pitti in the Boboli Gardens is a set of Sierra stone statues on a raised plinth. Created during the 17th century in the range of years of 1617 to 1621, Romolo del Tata sculpted 3 deformed male figures, or karamoji, that had the job of performing in front of the court. This term was used to describe those who had some form of deformity and were then tasked to perform for the amusement of the high class. Depictions of karamoji were common during this time period. Drawings of karamoji humpbacked dwarves, which appeared as frequent subjects in Florentine drawings, Sandra Chen, Dwarves and Giants in the early modern caricature, published by Amsterdam University Press, but none were made in statue. Working for the Medici family, Del Taro was a sculptor that often produced animals. However, he wanted to challenge himself and create a different subject. Looking to Jacques Collot, who also worked in the Medici court, and taking inspiration from the engraving of Zanni masks, which are masks of the Commedia dell'arte made by Calet. Del Taro then produced these 3 grotesque figures that stand in the Boboli Gardens today. Zanni masks are used by the Commedia dell'arte, which is a type of theater that was performed to represent the lower class of society. The character was a representation of a clown or a stupid, incompetent fool drawn from the lower classes of society at the time. Zanni characters wore these masks over their full face with a long nose before it was later transformed to a half mask with an extended longer nose. The longer the nose, the more stupid the character was supposed to be. Actors often wore costumes of the peasant class in addition to these masks, were hunched over and speaking in a foul language, often acting as proper societal norms and doing acrobatic performances. Overall, the Zanni character was used in a way to make fun of and exaggerate the defects and attitudes of those that stuck out from the aristocracy of society for comedic purposes. So to depict grotesque characters, it's not surprising that Del Taro drew inspiration from this aspect of Renaissance culture and incorporated it into his work.
The next stop is the Apennine Colossus right outside of Florence in Valle, Italy. It was made in the late 1580s by Jean de Bologna. The statue stands 11 meters high. It was made from stone and plaster. Today, it embodies moss and greenery due to its exposure to the elements. There are 3 stories that are accessible within it and a fountain that is also present. The fountain is dedicated to Titus, a Greek goddess of the sea. The Apennine Colossus is a human representation of the Apennine Mountains. Jean de Bologna is also known for his work surrounding gods and goddesses. Although this piece is loosely grotesque, it's a great example of how the idea was pushed and morphed into drastically different forms and types of art.